So now we're recording. It is a pleasure to have a partner in this. I've been trying to get more information about as I call it, the facial racial recognition program. And I reached out and I came across S.T.O.P, which is the surveillance technology oversight program.
That's
So I received a response back. More than welcome to come and talk to us about this program, why it's so problematic, and really their efforts, because S.T.O.P is doing amazing work, and hopefully tonight we can build an allyship. So Ali, is that how you pronounce? Okay, so brother, you take it away. So it's the ball's in your court now. Thank
Thanks
you
so
so
much.
much.
And thanks everyone for joining us and for having me and S.T.O.P. My name's Ali Panjwani. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Manager for the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. I've actually only been at S.T.O.P for a few days. This is my first week at S.T.O.P, but I've been working on these issues for a little bit. So if there are any questions that I can't answer, I will definitely go back to our team and get back to you with the answers if I don't have them. But just to start off, it'd be really great to see from folks, whether it's a raise of hands or an emoji on your screen, if people are familiar with facial recognition generally as a surveillance technology, if you could do a thumbs up. And then if you aren't really sure what facial recognition is, but are really interested in learning, any other emoji would be great too, just so I can get a sense of where everyone in the room, or the virtual Zoom room, is today. Okay. So some people are familiar, maybe some people not as much. So to start out, I think I'll just give an overview of what facial recognition is, just as the technology itself and how it works technically, just a little bit. So facial recognition is a way of identifying an individual through the use of their face, or what's known as a face print. So these systems are used to identify people in photos, identify people in pre-recorded videos, and also identify people in real time through real-time surveillance technologies. There are many different places that facial recognition shows up in our communities. Law enforcement are able to use mobile devices and use the technology on their cell phones to use this facial recognition technology. And then in addition to that, the technology is also being used by Customs and Border Protection at airports, especially over the last couple of years, that has really ramped up, and also by ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to detain and deport our fellow New Yorkers and other people in immigrant communities across the country. So facial recognition really has a mark all across our society, and that's just becoming more and more prevalent as time goes on. But what is the technology in itself? How does it work? So at the most basic level, the facial recognition camera will take a picture. So if you're walking by, it captures a picture of you. Initially, most of the facial recognition technology will find the eyes of the individual that it has taken the picture of. That's where the technology itself starts, is identifying the location of your eyes. The image is then converted to a template to match all of the other photos in a database. So the way most facial recognition technology and databases work is that they're comparing the photo that the camera takes to the photos that are in a larger database to try to find a match. So there are a variety of different places that these photos in the databases come from, whether that's Department of Motor Vehicles, whether that's the State Department through visa applications. There are many ways that these databases are built and strengthened through different local and federal agencies. But the facial recognition camera takes the photo and then compares the photo to the other photos that are in the database. And really, it's not comparing the photo itself, it's comparing the face print. And what the face print is the distinctive particular details about your face. So what's the distance between your eyes? What is the shape of your chin? It takes your facial features and changes them into a sort of mathematical representation of what your face looks like. And that's your face print. And then it compares the mathematical representation of your face to the mathematical representation of all of the other faces that are a part of the database trying to find a sort of a match. So again, these systems work in many different ways, but many of these systems use something called a probability match. So they'll run a photo through the database and then say, okay, here are 10 people that this might be. This is the percent chance, or this is the percent match between the image that you sent in and the images that are in the database. And these systems vary in their ability to identify people based off of low light, low image resolution, the angle that the photo is taken from. So there are a lot of different factors that come into play with the technology and how accurate it can be. Some studies show that more than 117 million Americans are included in law enforcement face recognition networks. More than half of American adults are a part of facial recognition databases. So it's more likely than not that most people on this call or in this room are also part of some sort of facial recognition database. And I say that not to scare you, but to tell you how prevalent this technology really is, and the amount of data that these companies and the federal government and local police departments have on them. So moving a bit into what are the problems with this technology. I really love the facial racial recognition that you've presented and talked about, because it is really true that this technology is very racist and it's biased. But to step back really quickly, I think anytime we're thinking about technology, any type of surveillance technology, it's really important for us to remember that this technology is rooted in data sets. It's coming from data that has been collected by a human being. So a lot of times tech companies or police departments will say, well, at least the technology or the computer will be smarter than the police officer. The police officer will be biased, the technology will be unbiased. But the reality is that's not how it works. The data that the technology is using, that the data that the algorithm in the facial recognition technology is using, is building off of data that has already been collected. It's building off of data that's already biased and already racist. And it's using and perpetuating that same data and presenting itself as unbiased, as impartial. But the reality is that's not the case. And we also have to remember that this tech is not employed in a vacuum. We live in a racist society. We have to think about the fact that this technology is a part of the social, political, racial ecosystems that we live in, and not existing in a vacuum. So these the societal injustices that we face are very much so a part of how the technology will operate itself as well. In a 2018 MIT study done by some researchers in the field, they found that facial recognition algorithms were trained on data sets that overwhelmingly composed of lighter-skinned subjects. So the technology was learning primarily from white faces, primarily from white male faces. So then it's no surprise that the technology then is most biased against and least effective when it comes to people with darker skin pigmentation, when it comes to Black folks, when it comes to Black women in particular. And there are many different studies that happened before this as well that sort of showed this disparity, but this study was really the first one that did an intersectional study between race and gender, and found that not only was it Black individuals that were that the algorithm was least effective at matching, but it was Black women that it was least effective at matching. And that was primarily due to the fact that the data sets that it was being trained on were primarily white men. Another study in December 2019 showed that Black and Asian people were up to 100 times more likely to be misidentified than white men, 100 times more. So it's not like there's a small, a little bit of inaccuracy. It's a huge problem. It's at the root of the technology in itself. And then moving beyond race as well, or in addition to race, researchers from the University of Colorado tested the algorithms in regards to gender identification. Could the facial recognition algorithm identify the gender of the individual? We can save for the fact that even just that presumption or the baseline of that is problematic in its own sense. But of course, the study found that the algorithms were consistently less accurate in identifying the gender of transgender people as opposed to cisgender people. So this bias is all across the facial recognition technology, and is really rooted within it. And then the last thing when it comes to the bias is that this technology is used by law enforcement, and racist policing, as we know, underpins the use of this technology. Many of you may be familiar with the NYPD's gang database. There are many similar databases across the country that aim to identify individuals who are quote unquote part of gangs, and usually include and label Black, Latinx, Brown, immigrant, Muslim communities in these databases, and have the faces of these individuals in these databases as well. So if the facial recognition technology is running the photo of someone and matching that photo to the gang database, which is already biased, of course the technology itself is also going to produce a biased response and perpetuate more policing against Black, Brown, immigrant, and Muslim communities. Are there any questions so far? I feel like I'm talking a lot, and I want to give you all space to share any thoughts that you might have, any things that surprised you, any questions that you have that I can answer as well. And then I can move on to some of the other stuff too.
If you want to just put your name and stack, I'll call you. Bianca?
Hi, I had a couple questions about the studies that you mentioned. The MIT one about like the not being able to identify the faces of like easily match up the faces of Black women as compared to white men in that situation. What for that database, did they have people volunteer their images for that, or was it based off of people, the researchers in the study, or like a database that already was being used, like a police database?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not exactly sure where the images came from, though I can look into that and get back to you. But they tested 3 different algorithms that were tech companies' algorithms that already existed on the database. I believe, though, that they created the database trying to have a representative sample so that they could test it amongst diverse faces.
Ali, what I've heard about that is that they get faces from everywhere. They take faces off Facebook, off whatever social media platforms that are out there that show people's faces, and they include that automatically into their databases.
Yeah, that's in particular also for Clearview AI's database, which we can also talk about since that's the technology that the DA's office is using. But yeah, in actuality and not in the study, these images come from Department of Motor Vehicle databases, State Department databases, databases from airport scans, and then in the case of Clearview AI, also from Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms.
Okay, Bianca. So John Macbeth is next, then Neil Berry will be after that. John?
Yeah, Ali, I just want to know if any municipality has successfully gotten parts of databases removed from access by law enforcement.
Yeah, there are many jurisdictions nationwide over the last couple of years that have been able to ban the use of facial recognition technology when it comes to law enforcement. So Portland, San Francisco, and Boston are some of them that have led that process and succeeded. In New Jersey, the state's attorney general office has ordered all local police departments to cease using Clearview AI's program specifically. So there is a precedent for stopping this technology.
As has the entire government of Canada, right?
Correct, yeah.
Made this technology illegal. Neil?
Yes, and what about in the court of law? Has there been any cases determined by this kind of recognition that we know of that was presented in front of a jury, or perhaps, and was it admissible? To what extent is it used in the court of law?
Yeah, I'm not an attorney and don't have the legal background, so I'm not as familiar with that. But one thing that I can mention or reference is a case that was just filed last year by the ACLU and other partners against Clearview AI. in Illinois, and I can send a link to that if you're interested in reading, but that's the extent to my knowledge about the legal avenues. But I don't believe there have been many.
Anybody else? So if you think of questions, just put your name in stack and we'll go and we'll call on you. But you know, one of the things that we wanted to get into.
1 second, Sally and Dave have their hands up.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. Hi, Sally.
No, I just put it up. I was wondering, are people going to be carrying around this software on their cell phones, or are they already? You know, they're used those glasses, Google glasses had facial recognition, I believe. So I'm just wondering, is this going to be software that everybody's going to have? And what do we do about that?
Yeah, so I'm not as aware about personal use of this technology, but I do know that at least with Clearview AI and other companies that are working with law enforcement, as long as they have that contract, the individual officers, the individual agents do have this technology on their phone and do have access to it. So there may be a future where we all have potentially, though we wouldn't participate in it, of course, the vast majority of the population has this personally, is using it in that sense too. So that is a danger that we foresee.
I mean, just carrying your cell phone around, right? I mean,
yeah.
Every time you ping somewhere, you know, that goes into some database somewhere.
Definitely.
Selena has a question.
Yep.
Not a question, but to piggyback off of what Sally said with the cell phone, I had gotten stopped on the street on Bay Street by a state trooper who are not supposed to be patrolling the streets. They're supposed to be on the highways. And he stopped me and he took a picture with his phone. He wanted to take a picture of my face. So I'm going to venture to say that technology is already on the phones, and law enforcement are currently using it here in Staten Island, if not on a local level, at least on the state, because he was adamant about taking a picture of my face.
Definitely, yeah. Law enforcement, as of course you experienced, do have the app on their phones and are able to log into the facial recognition database and take a photo just on their mobile device.
Uh-oh, Selena.
You know they're coming for me.
He never said what that was all about.
He pulled me over. I have no idea. Never gave me a ticket, and the whole crazy thing, I was on the phone with someone, and as a Black woman, when the police pull me over, I freeze. I'm like, okay, hands up, whatever. And he just took a picture of me, and he wanted to see my registration, my insurance, and that was it. And then he let me go.
Wow.
And
that's not the first time. That's not the first time that's happened, but yeah, it happens more often than not.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think that also goes to another point that I was going to make, is that as it currently stands, law enforcement don't need a warrant to do that. There are no regulations in place to stop law enforcement from using the facial recognition technology without a warrant, or with most police departments, even without any sort of like suspicion. So that's a huge part of the dangers of the technology as well.
Brittany?
No, Stephanie is then Brittany.
I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just interrupt me when I don't see hands.
Okay. I got it. It's Stephanie and then it's Brittany.
Okay.
So I know that we're here talking, and what sparked the conversation is that we knew that the DA's office purchased it. But after Selena's comment, like, do we know if the state is using this? Like, is this something that the state is currently using? Because I know we're meeting to see how we can get it like taken out of the DA's hands here, but are there other people in the state that we have to worry about too?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the Staten Island DA's office is the only DA's office that agreed to participate in the Clearview program. But one of the biggest users of this facial recognition technology in Clearview AI is the NYPD. So the NYPD is using facial recognition technology, and some of the campaigns that I'll talk about a little bit later also are getting the legislature to ban the NYPD's use of the technology and their abuse of it as well. But that's a great question.
Aiden, did you have, I saw you were in the stack or had your hand up. Do you have
Oh, no.
anything? No?
Sorry, I stopped myself. I changed my mind, but thank you.
Okay, Brittany, do you have, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I had a similar question, which was lines of approach. I know that with About Face and Mi Gente, we did actions in New York organizing tech workers about Palantir, which is a different type of surveillance, but I think that was an effective approach. So not to get ahead of things, but I'm just, yeah, my head is in the place of like, what levers do we think we can pull beyond the DA directly to address this?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Great. Thank you all so much. Sorry.
No, I'm saying, you want to take it?
Yeah, I can go sort of into the next section. Of course, if questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. And also thank you for the wonderful conversation. It's nice hearing everyone's voices instead of just mine. So going a little bit into what beyond the bias, why is this technology so dangerous? So it's made particularly concerning by the fact that there's no form of due process, which we talked about a little bit. Like I mentioned, local police departments, federal agencies don't need a warrant currently to employ the technology. Most don't even need suspicion. It's often being used to monitor and surveil protesters and others who are participating in First Amendment protected activities. So with one photo, the NYPD or any other agency is able to see when you're going to mosque, where you're going to mosque, if you're visiting a reproductive healthcare facility. And the facial recognition technology is really redefining what it means for us to have privacy and to be in public places. So it's not just a transformation of policing and a transformation of surveillance, it's a transformation of how we exist in the public space, which is what makes it so insidious. And the other thing too about facial recognition technology is that it's a type of identification you can't really reasonably change, right? You can change a password you have, you can encrypt your phone, but you can't really change your face print. Your face print is a part of who you are. And if there's a camera on the side, it can take a picture of you without you having no idea, and you're really not able to prevent it, which makes the need to ban this technology even stronger. A few other things about facial recognition and the mistakes that can be made with it and the abuses that come with it. There's a report out of Georgetown called Garbage In and Garbage Out, which talks about like garbage data coming in, which produces garbage out as well, with the results that come from the technology. I would highly recommend reading it and looking into it if any of you are interested more in like the technical side of how this technology works. And I can send a link as well. But it really talks about how this methodology is unscientific. And a few examples that it provides directly from the NYPD is that one, when a photo is taken, it's not always the clearest photo, right? Someone might have one of their eyes closed. It might be a little blurry or pixelated in a corner of the photo. So what this report found is that the NYPD was using photoshopping before putting these images into the databases. So if someone's eyes were closed, they would Google left eye with maybe the race of the individual, take that picture and Photoshop it on. Of course, that's not a scientific way to match someone's face. Even if there is a scientific way to match someone's face, that's not it. Duplicating sides of someone's faces was also something that was common, where if one side of the face is blurry, they just copy and flip to the other side. But that's also not how human faces work, and is not a scientific way to use technology. And one other example too, which is particularly scary and insidious and almost a bit humorous, is using lookalikes of celebrities. So they found that the NYPD used pictures of celebrities to fill in gaps on people's faces that were missing or people's faces that were unclear. And this was uncovered in this Georgetown report. A lot of these police departments also use hand-drawn sketches and are allowed to use hand-drawn sketches to feed those into facial recognition databases to then be matched with photos that are taken. And again, this report finds that this is not a scientific way to do it. You can't match a sketch that's made by someone to a photo that's taken. That's not going to produce the right result. And there are several examples in the report of that as well. And then the last thing in the COVID context is mask usage. Mask usage actually makes it much harder for the facial recognition technology to identify people. So in some ways, if you're wearing a mask, you're participating in subverting this technology. But just given what we don't know about what happens after the pandemic, will we always be wearing masks? This is something that will become a common part of our public lives. Wearing masks also disrupts how accurate this technology can be. I wonder if now we want to move a bit into particularly Staten Island, and then specifically talking about Clearview AI. So maybe I can just give a brief overview of why Clearview AI is more dangerous than some of the other companies, or particularly scary, and then we can just have a discussion and open up the floor about what's happening in Staten Island and some of the strategies that you all are working on. Love to hear about that as well. But Clearview AI has over 2,400 law enforcement clients nationwide, and more than 100 of them are prosecutors' offices. The technology has been used by everyone from the Justice Department to ICE to Macy's to Walmart. Even the NBA used this technology. There are thousands of corporations, law enforcement agencies across the country that are using Clearview AI, and across the world too. It's a technology that's being deployed across the globe as well. So most facial recognition surveillance systems use a comparison database, as I mentioned, taking images from other places, taking images from the DMV, from State Department databases, from other local law enforcement or mugshot databases, for example. But what Clearview AI did was they created their own database by going onto people's Facebook profiles, Twitter profiles, other social media profiles, to amass this massive database of images that it then sold to law enforcement agencies and to corporations. So what makes it particularly insidious is that they made their own database, and their database is huge. So it's really expanded the reach that facial recognition technology can have with its sharing with these different agencies. And of course, Clearview AI has come up with their own defenses by saying that there's no racial bias, that they did an independent study, but when reporters looked into it, it was a study that Clearview AI did itself. And now they're saying that they're planning on having it audited by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, but none of that has happened yet. And that also brings up sort of some questions about what does it mean for us when we're looking at legislation to make sure that if these technologies will exist, that we do have audits that are conducted independently and not by the companies themselves. We can't take these tech companies at their word for the lack of bias in their technology, if the technology is going to exist at all. So that's a little bit about Clearview AI. If we want to move now into some of the Staten Island specific stuff.
That would be fine. So if anyone has a question now, please raise your hand or use the stack. I see Sally. Sally Jones.
No, it's David.
Oh, hey, David. Hey, Mr. Jones.
Hi, how are you doing, sir? I am. Listen, my question is, has there been a test of the privacy aspect of this? And it would appear to me that if the police stop you for no apparent reason, that's illegal, one. And the other part is he wants to take your picture. That should not be, in my view, that's a clear violation of your privacy. You're in an extension of your house. I think it could be argued that you're in an extension of your home, and therefore he has no right to come enter into or without a warrant. I would think that there's something very wrong with that. So again, the question is, has there been a test of this already? You know, has anybody, do we have anything happening, you know, as far as taking them to court on these matters?
Yeah, so there is that Clearview AI ACLU lawsuit that I linked in the chat. But again, I'm not as familiar with the legal avenues just because that's not my background. I could definitely look into that more. and then get back to you all or share some resources from the attorneys on our team. But from my understanding, it has not been tested in that sense in the court of law, even though it seems as something that's very obvious. And as of now, there are also not many regulations, except in the places that we've discussed, to require a warrant or to require any sort of suspicion for using the facial recognition technology.
Thank you. Bianca?
Hi, I had a question. What are some methods besides, wearing a mask that are helpful in terms of protection if our photos are taken? Like, I was thinking like wearing color contacts, like, is that actually helpful in like disrupting disrupting the database? Does that actually help in terms of like, does it matter at all?
Yeah, those are all really great questions. There are many companies out there, many artists out there that are really grappling with this issue as well. I believe there's an artist or an app which I've never used before myself, so I don't endorse the privacy aspects of it at all. But where it lets you upload your image and then distort the image so that you can use that distorted image to then use as your Twitter profile picture or your Facebook profile picture, so that then if a company is taking that photo, it's not actually your photo and it's just a slightly altered version of your photo. So that's one thing I can think of. Wearing a mask, honestly, is also another one of those. And I can't remember others off the top of my head. Maybe others here may know that as well, so feel free to chime in if you do. But there are definitely lots of artists and technologists who are working on this and thinking about what are creative ways and artistic ways like that to disrupt the facial recognition technology while it's going.
Cindy?
What other organizations is S.T.O.P working with in coalition on this issue?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So we have a Ban the Scan campaign that we recently launched with Amnesty International, the Immigrant Defense Project, the New York Civil Liberties Union, and then we have a larger coalition within called Privacy New York. So I can also link that so you can see all of the organizations that are a part of that. But the Legal Aid Society is another organization that we partner with as well, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. But I can send you the link that has all of our partners if you're interested. And I can also send the link for the Scan campaign.
Yes, please definitely put that in. Thank you so much, Ali. All right.
Should we start talking about Staten Island?
Yes. I'm just want to wait for Ali to put the information in, and then we can resume.
Great, so the first link I just sent is the Ban the Scan campaign. There's a petition that you can sign at the bottom there to the New York City Council and New York State. And then the second link is our Privacy New York campaign partners. So you can see some of the different organizations that we partner with.
Okay. And, we here in Staten Island, our DA, we recently found out that he purchased this software back in 2019. How can we get more information, about how this program was used, who it's been used on, what ways can we go about as individuals or as organization what are the steps that we can do to get more information about how the DA has been using this software?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I just want to make sure, Bianca, do you have a question? Just have your hand raised. I just wanted to check. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think in terms of finding out more information, from what I was reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, since you all know the Staten Island context better than I do, is that the contract started in May 2019 and was a year-long contract. And we're unsure as of now if they're still using the technology. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so I'd say I think that at least at S.T.O.P, one of the most helpful things for us and for other organizations have been public records requests. So submitting freedom of information requests to the police department, to the DA's office, to the sheriff's office to find out more information, asking for clear information about when was this technology used, how long was it used for, who did you partner with, what were the companies, what was the data set, getting all of that information. And we can start a conversation too and share some of our resources for how we filed some of those public records requests, if that's something that's of interest to you all. Because I think you're right, the first step is to find out what is still happening and what is still not. And then comes the campaigning to get them to stop it if they are still going and using the technology. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to say, could you explain a little bit more about the FOIL request? What is that, and how can, what's the process for that? That we can undertake to get more information from the DA's office about the facial racial recognition.
Definitely, yeah. So I think someone asked about FOIA. So FOIA is Freedom of Information Act, which is basically the federal version of FOIL, which is specific to states generally. And so you can find the information for any particular office, usually on their Freedom of Information Act page. And it'll give you the details for how to submit a request. It's different generally for different departments within a city or within a state. So I'm not familiar with exactly how the DA's offices work or the Freedom of Information Act or FOIL requests work there, but I can definitely look into that and share some information with you all and share the link to exactly where. But I imagine if there are people here who have done that before with the DA's office specifically, love if you could chime in as well.
Yeah, no, right, because that's what we are looking to do, is to get more information. So if you can definitely share that with us,
for sure.
On how, what's the procedure, how do we go about it, and that would be greatly appreciated. And so if we can have that information, so we can work together and get that information. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I can send that along to you and Joel, and then if you all want to forward that to the rest of the team as well. But we'd be happy to share the resources we have and also some of the stuff that we've uncovered through our own requests.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about that? I'm sorry, I know there's questions, but could you talk about, a little bit about that, about what your office done? Can you explain what is, what is S.T.O.P and why, why this, how did you come to be? How did this program, this organization come to be?
Definitely happy to answer that. So the mission of the organization was started just a little under 2 years ago. So we're a relatively new organization still. And we litigate and advocate for privacy, working to abolish local government systems of mass surveillance. That's sort of our tagline. And our work hopes to highlight the discriminatory impact of surveillance, as I mentioned, on Muslim Americans, immigrants, the LGBTQ community, Indigenous people, communities of color specifically. So some of the different campaigns that we're working on are the Ban the Scan campaign to ban facial recognition technology. We're supporting and endorsing bills to end the NYPD's use of the gang database. And then the thing that I was going to talk about next was the POST Act, which is one of the things that we've been taking lead on with other partner organizations. And I can send a link to that in the chat as well. But basically, last summer, we led a coalition to pass the POST Act, which essentially requires the NYPD to report all of the surveillance technologies it's using and its justifications for using them. And that act took effect just this January. So in January, the NYPD released documents for each of the surveillance technologies that it uses, giving basically just as expected boilerplate justifications, not really going into depth about the technology, leaving some of the technology out. So I'm going to send a link in the chat to the post-act page where you can actually submit comments to the NYPD. So that's what we're encouraging folks to do. And there's instructions on this website. It shows you the policy. We have some template emails that you can send. But basically this, I'll just go ahead and send it now so you all can see it while I'm talking about it. But this is one of the main projects that we're working on now. And you actually only have until tomorrow. Tomorrow is the deadline to submit comments to the NYPD on the post-act. But this link here shows you sort of what the campaign is, and then has the list of all of the technologies that the NYPD has noted that it uses, including a link to the PDF of the policy, and then an ability to click to email, which is a template email that you can send to the NYPD. So these are basically the main actions that we have going right now, are getting more transparency about the surveillance technology that the NYPD is using, and then taking that information to lobby and to campaign for banning the technologies as well.
Okay. I believe, please forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong. Ksenia?
Yep, you got it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Great conversation. My question's on the FOIA requests, and so this may be something to dig into later, but I'm curious if, just because the DA has it, I'm curious what other agencies, interagencies, fusion centers, ICE, federal has access to this capability.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think some of that too is what we've been trying to uncover, is exactly what databases is this information being shared with, who has access to it. We know that the Department of Homeland Security has its HART database, the HART database, and that stores a lot of biometric information, including facial recognition data and automatic license plate reader data, other types of surveillance technology data. And that database is shared with all of the Department of Homeland Security, but also with fusion centers. For those of you who are not aware, fusion centers are essentially state-based institutions that are information sharing hubs that a bunch of different local law enforcement, federal law enforcement have access to. So it's likely that a lot of this data is being shared with ICE. I mean, we know at least in many departments across the country, many police departments are directly sharing surveillance technology data with ICE through various data sharing agreements that exist. So yeah, that's a really great point. And I think something that we're also continuing to uncover and untangle is who's sharing what with who.
All right. Selena, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I have two questions actually. I just want to know, when a FOIA request is submitted, how long does it take to respond? Is there a time frame that they have to respond? And then the second question is, who is enforcing the Post Act? I know that it only was implemented in January 2021. Is there some agency or governmental authority that enforces that to ensure that the NYPD stays in compliance?
That's a great question. Again, I'm not as familiar with the enforcement element of that, and could definitely look into that too. But from my understanding, our purpose right now is to get the information that they give us, post the comments, and then figure out avenues to enforce the Post Act if they're not doing so. I know, Shanze, I think I saw you on the call. I don't want to put you on the spot, so no worries if you don't want to comment, but if you're familiar with the answer to the question. Shanze is a legal intern with our team as well, but I actually don't know if she's on anymore. Yeah, so I can get the answer to that question and get back to you.
Because a lot of times, a lot of these things are implemented and then there's never any enforcement, no oversight. So there's no reason for the agencies to comply. So I just wanted to understand, if there's no oversight, do we need to implement oversight so it can be enforced?
That's a really great point. Yeah, I'll talk to the team and get back to you on that.
All right, Bianca and then Joel.
So I was just checking out the Post-Act website, that section, and I did notice that there was a distinction between iris recognition and facial recognition. So is this something, I also just wanted to ask the group as well, if for our DA, is what is he using both iris recognition and facial recognition, or are they kind of usually lumped together as both the same thing? I'm just kind of wondering what the specifics are, because I also am kind of like starting to learn a little bit more about the situation.
Yeah, from my understanding, I think the iris recognition devices are just specifically for eyes and don't take the entire face print. But I'm not sure what the context is within the Staten Island DA's office. From what I know, Clearview AI focuses on facial recognition, not specifically iris recognition. But I can't fully answer that question. But that's sort of the difference. Is iris is just eyes, whereas facial recognition is the whole face and the face print.
All right, Joel, you're up next.
Thanks. So you know, it's just amazing that, you know, this stuff is just, you know, the aim of it just seems to be to make the issue of whether or not we have privacy and the right to privacy some quaint notion of the past. You know, I mean, because, you know, with technology like this being used, and you know, look, you can't walk around Manhattan without being on camera. No matter where you are, on just about any block you walk on, you are on one kind of camera or another. And so the whole issue of our privacy slowly being taken away is a real concerning issue. So the other thing I wanted to ask, though, following up on what Selena was saying, you know, about accountability, was that there is a bill by Brad Hoylman, who's a state senator, and that begins to get at what, you know, some attempt at accountability. And I think actually the bill wants to make facial recognition illegal, but says also something about if it's made legal, there's got to be real serious oversight and stuff like that. So could you talk about that, please?
Exactly, yeah. So that's S79, which I can also link for you all, but it's part of our Ban the Scan campaign, is to push that ban on law enforcement's use of facial recognition technology across New York State. And we're also strategizing and working to have a similar bill at the New York City level as well to do the same. But that's S79, and I can send a link to that, which is also included in our Ban the Scan campaign website.
Where is that legislation at right now?
Yeah, it's in committee, so we're waiting for a hearing and then moving forward from there. So it's currently in committee, and I can send the link to the bill.
When you say it's in committee, could you give a little bit information as, you know, what does that mean that it's in committee?
Yeah, it's essentially being discussed by the various committees that are part of the New York State Legislature, and then it'll be on the floor calendar, which is the next step. And then when it's on the floor calendar is when the hearing would happen, and then there would be a vote by the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate, and then go to the governor if it gets to that point, and hopefully it does.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. John, you're next.
Yeah, so just a quick comment and that I wanted to lift up. With FOIA requests, it does depend on the agency, from my understanding. Again, I don't have a legal background, but it does depend on the agency how soon you can get your request answered, the actual answer to your request. But they're supposed to get back to you within 5 days that they received your request and that they're working on it. But the one comment I wanted to make is, if it's almost amazing. The reason that the DA is citing that they can't release who they've already used this software on, oddly enough, he's claiming privacy, the privacy for those people, which is just the strangest thing. I was just blown away.
Invasion of privacy.
Yeah, yeah, it's citing privacy as the reason why they can't tell you who they've actually used it on. So just based on that statement alone, it seems apparent that they have actually used it. To what extent, you know, we just don't know at this point.
Okay, Cindy and then Aiden.
Does anybody know where Senator Savino stands on Senator Holman's bill, S79?
No, no. There's been no comment from her office or from Assemblyman Fall's office. So right now, there's been no comment.
I'm sorry, Jazz. Have you directly asked both of them?
Yes, our group has
Okay,
asked.
okay.
Yeah. Aiden?
Hi, could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry if this was covered already and I'm like asking about it, but I was wondering how things like the recognition program is put into practice with the DA and like departments like the state troopers. Would that be something that like they use during an investigation, or if that had anything to do with, I know I refer to them as like the eye in the sky. It's like the random surveillance cameras that the NYPD either puts on corners or they have the mobile units also, if that has anything to do with those.
Yeah, so those cameras definitely feed into and are used in conjunction with facial recognition technology, which is what again makes it even more worrisome. Is that the facial recognition technology is also not just being used by itself; it's being used in conjunction with a bunch of different types of cameras and technologies, like you're talking about, just CCTV cameras that also do not have facial recognition on them. When it comes to the DA's office, yes, you're right. It's usually used during the course of an investigation where an individual's face is attempting to be, or a shot that they have, a picture that they have of a person that they're pursuing, whether it's from a camera that's a facial recognition camera or not, is then being taken and then run through the database. So I assume within the DA context, it's within the context of an investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Ali, can you talk a little bit more why this is so problematic to, I know you touched on it in the beginning, but specifically here, in Staten Island, why this is so problematic. The fact that, this is basically unfairly used against communities of color. And you also mentioned the LGBTQ community. Could you touch a little bit more about, why this is so problematic to marginalized communities? I know you did, but if you can go a little bit more into detail as to why we should be concerned, why we should be worried, why this is an issue.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think that just at the bottom line, the technology itself is invasive. The technology just perpetuates already racist, invasive, violent policing practices that exist here in New York and across the country. There have been some examples of misidentification, which have caused people to end up detained. An individual named Robert Williams was arrested by Detroit police last summer because of a false match on a facial recognition database. He spent 30 hours in a jail cell, basically accused by an algorithm of a crime that he didn't commit. There's one line that he said that sticks with me that I have written here. And he said, talking about his young 2 daughters, how does one explain to 2 young girls that the computer got it wrong, but the police listened to it anyways? And so that line really stuck to me, and it has very real consequences, right? It's not, it's that the consequences aren't minimal. The consequences are someone ending up being detained, someone ending up being deported, subject to various forms of police violence, sort of the whole gamut of things. So the technology is biased, number one, which is already a problem. 2, it's being used by law enforcement and agencies whose practices are also biased and racist, which is a problem. And then 3, it leads to things like unlawful arrests and detaining and subjecting innocent people to law enforcement surveillance and attention.
Right.
Yeah, I can definitely send out, Stephanie, the information that's out there on that.
And if you want to send it to Joel and myself, and we will, and as Brother Neil pointed out, people that were wrongly, are there situations where people are wrongly convicted based off of the facial recognition program? So we would, definitely, we would want information about that as well.
Definitely, I can send that to both of you alongside some of the other stuff that we talked about as well with the FOIA and FOIL.
Perfect, perfect. So again, we are, again, this is something really new to us that we're finding out. And, as John had mentioned that, our DA had said that it's an undue invasion of privacy, if he reveals how this is used. So apparently there seems there will be resistance. So what should be our course of action to find out how this program's been used and if it's still implemented? So what could we do? What would be our first steps? Let's just say for STOP, what would STOP do in this particular situation, or would recommend for us to do?
Yeah. So again, I think that the public records requests are a great first step to figure out exactly what's happening, because without knowing what's happening, it's not easy to take any course of action. So I definitely recommend that as a first step, and we can definitely partner on that. And I can send you all the information that we have on that. And then the next step would be to push through advocacy and organizing, whether that's direct action or emailing, getting your base and your community groups to push and get the DA's office to cut its partnership with Clearview AI if the partnership is still happening. And then I'd encourage you all to plug into some of the New York City-wide and New York State campaigns, like the Ban Scan campaign, the Post Act that we're working on, which will also have impact sort of on what's happening in the local level for you as well.
Thank you so much. Joel, did you have something to say? I can hear you.
Unmute.
Yeah.
So I assume that, we're going to continue this discussion, Jazzy, at the meeting of the Social Justice Working Group.
Yes.
So
which is March 1st.
Which I just posted the link on the chat now. So if people here want to get involved in this work, in terms of getting into the specifics that we're going to actually be doing, please come to this next meeting. The registration link is in the chat.
One more thing that I wanted to uplift was something that someone said earlier about the strategy of also going at corporations. And I think someone mentioned the work of Mi Gente, which is really great, especially when it comes to the immigration enforcement context. So that might also be something to look at plugging into. Is there are many groups like Mi Gente that are doing advocacy to push the tech companies to stop collaborating with police departments and DA's offices. So looking at it from the other lens instead of, or using a multi-pronged approach where the advocacy you're doing is not just against the DA's office or police department, but also the tech companies that are supplying that technology to the agencies as well.
Right, because I think the way that I'm thinking about this is that, our first course of action would be to get the information, do the FOIL request, get that information, and then from there, then we'll more or less know how to move forward. But we do want to start off with the DA's office, being that the rest of the other DA's office, Manhattan, Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, they don't implement this, but we do, or our DA did use it or has used it or whatever. It's murky. So we need clear, definitive answers. So I think that would be the first course of action, is getting this information. I believe, Stephanie, you mentioned that there was going to be a meeting of sorts. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I apologize if I did, but you said in our conversation that March 4th, there would be.
So
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No. I was just giving you the floor.
Okay. Yeah. So the DA has been holding like monthly community conversations in an effort to, increase transparency, at least on the surface. And Ashley from his office had given me the heads up that currently the plan for the March 4th meeting is to talk about like their process from, charging crimes and then prosecuting crimes, and that this facial recognition will be part of that conversation. So I think we can, use that as an opportunity to ask some of the questions that he didn't answer in the last community conversation.
How can we get involved in that?
So they send out the invites. I can forward you guys Jazzy, I think you've been on those calls, so I don't know if that's when that link goes out for the invite that you can pass along to some folks.
Yeah, it's usually given to me. I don't necessarily, I'm not in the cloud to get it.
So I'll forward it to you too when I get it. And then you can pass around as you see fit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Michelle, you had a question? I see it in the chat, but would you mind repeating it? I think that's a very valid question.
Oh, hi. Okay. So it just seems like, I just think logically, and it's like you're saying how this technology is inaccurate. It's particularly not accurate with women of color the most than Black men, and it was designed by using white faces, but it's used against people of color, I'm guessing more often. And these agencies are like buying it for like, what's the real intention, to lock more people up of color, because like if it's not working right and you're using it anyway, what is the intention there?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question that I don't fully have the answer to, unfortunately, but I think that some of the factors that can play in is pressure from the tech companies. Oftentimes what happens is these tech companies will offer this program for free as a trial, and then communities will, or the police departments or other agencies will be sort of in the limelight saying, oh, this technology can help you solve crime and save lives. Why aren't you using it? It's not going to cost you money. Why don't you use it? Why don't you try it? And then that's sort of sometimes how these partnerships start is through that sort of like coercive model from the tech companies and like private funders who are attempting to quote unquote solve crime. But I think the research is pretty clear about facial recognition technology. There are lots of community groups and advocates who are pushing police departments and other agencies to stop using the technology. But I think that it also just fits into the larger carceral ecosystem that exists in this country of the goal being to lock people up, whether that's for profit or just fitting in within like the white supremacist like institution of policing that we have in this country. So I don't have the answer to what is their intention, but I think you're right that it is pretty clear that this technology is inaccurate. But I think there are points of pressure that push these organizations and attempts to quote unquote solve crime that have them sign these contracts.
And they're knowingly using it where there is studies that show that it is imprecise.
Yeah, I think one quote from, I think it was in one of the pieces that you all sent around, that there's a sort of like defensiveness too that says, oh, like we won't abuse the technology. We'll double check. We'll make sure. Humans' eyes will be on the technology. Basically saying, I think one of the defense attorneys that works in the Staten Island DA's office said, the technology can be abused, but I'm confident that Staten Island DA would not rush to bring charges based on facial recognition matches alone. So it's basically just saying, oh, trust us. We know that the technology can be biased and can be abused, but we won't abuse it. We'll double check. And of course, we can't take them at their word.
Because they have a great track record.
Exactly. And also there's, I can't exactly remember where the study is from, but another study that I was actually looking at today talked about how many police departments that use sort of like a human double check on like matching faces with facial recognition technology are still wrong more than 50% of the time. Even the human that's then double checking matching the faces is still inaccurate. So oftentimes, again, tech companies, police departments will use this as an excuse that, okay, the technology might not be perfect, but then you can have a human looking at it afterwards. But even then, we see that bias comes into play. Even then, we see that there are many inaccuracies, more than 50% in some cases with the police department studied.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Aiden, you have a question
Or a comment?
or a comment?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just wanted to like second what Michelle said.
Okay. We're gonna wrap this up. Does anyone have any final thoughts? You know, from people that are here. Is there any final thoughts? If any questions that you would like to ask Ali, and then Ali, you can just take it away and you know, again, just remind us of the two actions that you were telling us about. So I think that would be a great way for us to close out. If anyone has anything that they want to add, share, comment, please feel free to use the stack or raise your hand. But if there is none, then Ali, would you bring it on home? And my only ask is willing to come back again, you and or Albert, stop with mind coming back again, to help us out here to navigate navigate these waters again. We're new to this, and and we do have a meeting. There will be a meeting with DA McMahon. So what would you recommend for us to do? Should we? I mean, I know you suggested the FOIL request, but should we, have a petition? What should we do to prepare for the meeting on March 4th? Any suggestions? Any pointers? I mean, you can say now, or you can email Joel and myself, and we will share with the group, and hopefully people that are interested that are on this call will register for March 4th. March 1st with the social justice group, and we will have a debriefing on this and plan our plan of action, our course of action. And if Ali, if you want to come on the 1st to be our guest and help us out a little bit more, we'll greatly be appreciative of that as well. So Thank you so much.
Definitely, yeah. We'd love to continue the partnership with your group and see how we can help you all out and work together on our campaign. So I'll talk to Albert and the team and see how best we can do that, and then try to make it to the March 1st meeting as well. But in terms of wrap up, I think I'm just going to send the link again one more time to the post-act comments. I'll definitely find out more about what S.T.O.P is thinking about enforcing the post-act if it's not fully complied by. As we've seen, it hasn't been fully complied by, and get that information to you all as well. I'll send along the FOIL information. But yeah, if you get a chance to please to comment and send a comment to the NYPD on any of those technologies that you're interested in, it would really greatly help us. And chances are, again, that like those comments aren't going to be looked at or taken seriously, but it does really show force if we're able to send in as many comments as possible. And those comments are due by tomorrow. So we'd greatly appreciate if you did that. And then if you also supported the Ban the Scan campaign, I can send that link one more time again too. But there's a letter at the end that you can sign to the New York City Council and the New York State Legislature to ban the scan and to ban facial recognition technology in New York. And then I think the only last thing I'll say is just on a broader level. I think that as a society, we always think about tech solutions. We look at the problems that we have on the ground and say, what technology can we use to solve these problems, without really looking at the root of these problems. And I think that facial recognition technology and this tech solution is just yet another example of us ignoring the real causes of violence in our societies, the real things that make us unsafe, and is just exacerbating the same violent racist policing that we see anyway. So it's not even really a tech solution, it's just a tech perpetuation of the same society that already exists. So I would just say, as you're thinking about your work, be wary about these tech surveillance practices and this technology, and hopefully we can all work together to think about how we can bring real safety and real comfort to our communities that's not rooted in policing and not rooted in this carceral system. And then the last thing I also wanted to mention too was just my apologies for any questions that I couldn't answer, and for your grace with me and having this conversation. I really loved it and enjoyed it. I was telling Joel and Jazzy this earlier, but this is actually my first week with S.T.O.P. So I've done some of this work before, but this is day 3 at S.T.O.P for me. So I appreciate your patience, and for the questions I wasn't able to answer, I will definitely get back to you on them as soon as I get the chance.
And we hope that you do join us March 1st at our social justice group working meeting. Again, myself and Joel will be there, and I'll be on time, and so we can we will definitely partner up, and any insight, please feel free to the door is always open. Staten Island DSA, you have an allies here with us, so please, any call of action that we can help, thank you so much. So we really appreciate it. Great information, Ali. Thank you, Albert. Thank you so much for partnering up with us, and I will definitely get on board with the 2 call of actions that you've given to us. So my only ask is for people that have joined the call, if they would, sign on, do this so that, we can help out S.T.O.P, and really make an impact, against these unfair tactics against folks. Joel, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, this has really been a great conversation. Yeah, I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to the work, and I'm looking forward to getting this technology banned.
Yeah.
Can I say something, Jazzy?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Neil.
Yes.
I just wanted to say I want on record to say this, and I think Ali said something very pertinent. This goes deeper than just the facial recognition on Staten Island. This is a pattern of behavior by the DA's office, from the Eric Garner case into the present state, and the grand jury and the cops that have not been indicted for all this other information. The indifference and the insignificance of people of color in the prosecutorial office and the DA's office, and the number of police officers on Staten Island who have been sanctioned. So this is a pattern, and I'm not saying that this is not very important, but I just think that the DA's office has to be coming under question for this behavior. I don't think it's so much about each individual item, but the pattern of this kind of practice from the day 1 of this district attorney's office is horrible. Just want to go on record saying that.
Well, Brother Neil, like I said, at our group, we are building a case. This is just one instance of abuse by DA McMahon. We also have, as you mentioned, Eric Gardner matter. We also have the fact that there's an officer that planted drugs on 2 people during a routine traffic stop, and the officer only received a loss of vacation day. He has not been fired. So there is a lot of grievances against DA McMahon. But what we're trying to do, DSA, is that we are building, a foundation. We're building a case against DA McMahon, because 1, we have this program that was secretly purchased back in 2019. The fact that very little to none information has been shared with the public. I know that I was on a call, Stephanie was on a call, Neil Shadina, there was other advocates on the call, and we were basically ignored and shut down when we did ask about, about the facial recognition program. So, it's not just, we're not just going to leave it at the facial recognition program. We are implementing other grievances against DA McMahon, because we want a solid case, against him. So everything that I've listed, everything that I've said, and there's more, but we're starting off, with the racial facial recognition program, because that's problematic. And the fact that he's not being transparent and he's not being open. And that was one of his campaign promises, to be open and transparent. And you're having this program and you're not being open and you're not being transparent. So that is very problematic to me, in addition to every other grievances that you and I and everyone else has against DA McMahon. So hopefully, Brother Neil, you'll come on the 1st. And I implore everyone that's on this call to Cindy, thank you so much for coming. We're wrapping it up. So just basically, please, do the call of action that Ali has asked. And my ask is, please join us March 1st. Sign up in the link that Joe has posted to sign up March 1st at 7, so that we can continue on the conversation. The conversation is not going to stop. We are going full steam ahead, and we have a lot more planned. So right now we're just taking the baby steps and we're laying down the foundation. So that's basically what we're doing. And again, I had this forum because I was not too familiar about it, and I reached out, and S.T.O.P graciously, said, we'll help and we'll educate, and we don't mind, coming through and talking, with your organization about this problematic racially biased program. So again, this is just the beginning. So we hope that as much energy as some of you have on this call, we hope that when it's time to put boots to the ground, to actually do the work, that you're committed. So that's basically it. If anyone has anything else they want to add, Ali, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You did great, and we hope that you come back again. You won't be a stranger.
Definitely. I look forward to learning and building and organizing together with you all. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So if that's it. Any, in the words of Russell Simmons, good night. God bless. Be well, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, Joel, would you send me that recording?
We're going to get the link for it, Don.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry I missed it. It was great to see you, Jazzy. I'm really excited.
Yeah, all right.
I'm sorry. I had a meeting. I couldn't get out of it. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. That's why we
guys.
recorded it.
Wait, I don't know if it's okay. I don't know if it's okay.
Okay, all right. But Joe, it's okay by
You're supposed to let
Jazzy.
me off the hook.
No, Joel will never let you off the hook. No.
More important than this.
All right. I love you guys. I'll tell you what it was. It was a petitioning training that I shouldn't have had to go to because I already know everything that they were teaching, but I had to show face because it's a job, and I'm sorry. And blah, blah, blah.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, like I said, that's another thing that's coming up with petitioning. So,
Yeah.
No, yes, it will be. We will definitely we'll definitely share it on our network. So
we will.
Yes.
We'll get you. I'll get the link.
We got you, Don. We got you.
I love you guys. Good night.
Yes, I love you too. Take care. Be well. Be safe.
And Nora was asking also.
Yeah, definitely. We will definitely share this recording within the next day or so.
It's a great picture of you, Nora. I'm sure it was very recent.
Yes, probably about 53 years ago.
Aww.
We were
yes, that was my Staten Island little child photo.
We were cleaning out my parents' house, and I found old slides, and a couple of the slides were me as a 2-year-old sitting on the great lawn in Prospect Park.
Oh my God.
Eating the grass and just putting it in my mouth. But I saved them. I have them.
The weird thing is, I don't know why this picture comes up because I didn't choose it, but it seems to come up in Zoom. So I just leave it. I mean, it must be feeding from Facebook.
I guess.
But it's odd because another Zoom meeting I have is through the Department of Education where I work. And I didn't sign up through the DOE, but somehow this picture linked itself to Zoom. So I just leave it.
That's fine.
Yeah, I like it.
Are you a teacher?
No, I'm a therapist, an
Okay.
OT.
Okay.
But I promise to show face next time. I'm
You can do
in my
It's fine by me. I have no problems with that.
Well, you know what I look like anyway, although we've not met in person, which is crazy.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's the
Thank
world
you.
we live in.
Show your face.
Oh, I will. No, not now.
Yeah, not you leave her be, Joe. It's fine.
I show it all day long with my kids working remotely. I can't.
I hear
I'm
you.
so sick of it.
I hear you. I hear you.
All right. Thank you,
Yes, thank
Soji. We
you.
hope you sign up. Thank you. Thank you guys. Just please, show up and we'll definitely have the recording out as soon as possible. And whatever you miss, we
Thank
have
you.
it recorded. Yeah. So
I
no
signed up
problem.
for March already, so good.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for
So,
doing this.
No, well, thank you for showing up.
Yep.
We
I'm
can't do this
running
without
home.
you guys.
I was like, oh shit. Anyway, thank you.
No, thank you. Be
right.
well, be safe.
You will. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. You too.
Paula, Soji, Paul, you guys all right? Jesse, you there? Maybe.
Hey.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Hey, Paul. Everything all right, man?
Well, I got my mother a vaccine appointment, so I'm happy about that.
That's great. That's great.
Good news.
I got my second shot a week and a half ago. And still here to talk about it.
No one's died of the vaccine yet, but plenty of people have died because they haven't had it.
Got that right. Keep smiling. That's all right. This is an inside joke, Paul. Me and Jazzy have been going back and forth about this for a quick minute. Anyway, Paul, me and Jazzy just got to talk about one or two things, so I'm gonna put you in the waiting room or whatever.
No problem. I will talk to you guys later.
All right, man. Take
All
care.
right, thank you. Be well, be safe.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
That was
Wow.
Great. That was great.
Wow.
Aside from me talking too much in the first 5 minutes, which you should have interrupted me. I don't know how I got started, but I was just on a roll there, and we had.
You couldn't stop. You could not stop yourself.
I know.
I was like, why? I mean, I'm not trying to. I'm being funny. I'm clearly being facetious here. I was like, here it is. This is something. I'm like, this is Joel is like running the show, because you were just like.
No,
you were on, but that's good. That's good. We complement each other. So
I know that, but we
complement each other. It's fine.
We hadn't read the land acknowledgement yet. We hadn't done anything. I just started.
Oh, wait 1 second.
What? You all right?
1 second. It's
okay.
it's.
You better talk to me.